Hello. Welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. And on this pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things, we have stuff and things to talk about, including upcoming videos, things that you can look forward to on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays. We're going to talk about trying out straight, pure varietals of different teas. Things like having a pipe full of Perique, straight St. James Perique, or straight Cyprian Latakia. Is that worth it? What does that do for you? We're going to be talking about that a little bit. And then, of course, we will have your questions, comments, and feedback in hashtag askstuffandthings. So let's get into it. All right, first of all, upcoming videos. Last week, I mentioned that I was going to do a revisited episode for Peterson Irish Oak. The problem with that is that I had forgotten that Irish Oak is no longer Irish Oak. It is now Peterson Irish Cask. And the Irish Oak that I had was a tin from 2018, which at the time I think it was still made by McBaron. It's made by STG now. And I think it's a little bit different. I mean, it's too different for me to say that the tin I have is representative of what you would get now if you went out and got Peterson Irish Cask. So instead of doing that revisited episode, I've done something a little bit different and kind of weird. I think it's going to be fun though. I think you're going to enjoy it. I got a tin, or not a tin, I have a jar of pure St. James Perique. And I decided that I would start maybe a recurring series in which I sample pure straight versions of component teas that you'll find in a lot of different blends. So Perique is in vapor blends all the time. This first video, I tried pure St. James Perique. It's pretty interesting. I think you're gonna like this. This will be out this Wednesday. We will also have, I've got stuff down here, the review of the Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter. A beautiful, beautiful knife that I'm enjoying quite a bit. This review is coming up soon. We will also have the review of the Roterfaden Taschenbegleiter, new notebook system that I've been trying out for the last couple of weeks. Liking this a lot too, so stay tuned for that. And then of course, we have Elden Ring every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Stuff and Things Plays. The game, I think I can say this now, is probably the best game I've ever played. So you should watch the series, because it might be the best gameplay series that's ever existed. Check it out. All right, but now for the topic of the show. Is it worth it, as a connoisseur of the pipe, to seek out pure, straight versions of tea varietals, or component teas, condiment teas, that are put in blends, and try them out for yourself so you can figure out what you're tasting in certain blends? I started out this series, this is going to be on Wednesday, with St. James Perique, pure St. James Perique. And I kind of started out with a doozy, or I jumped in the deep end, because St. James Perique it's a very strong, it's very strong, very flavorful, very bold component tea. It's made in a really interesting way. I get into some of the history of that in the video that's coming up Wednesday. But if any of you have had a vapor blend that has a high proportion of Perique in it, you will know that it's very rich, has a high nicotine content. It's very peppery. It's very distinctive. It's very obvious in a blend. And you can imagine having an entire pipe full of that. It's something. But I think it does help to really underline for you what the flavor profile is of Perique. We might do a video in which I do an entire pipe of just pure Latakia. That's another thing I'm thinking of. The Latakia I have though is pretty old. I think it's at least 6 years old, so that might have mellowed a little too much. I might want to get some fresh Latakia and try that. You can get these blending teas from, I think, Pipes and Cigars, I think Smoking Pipes as well. It just depends. You can get bulk versions of Perique, you can get Latakia, you can get, you know, Red Virginia, you can get all sorts of different varietals, all sorts of different component teas. And you could try them out, and I think it's really worth it. I don't think you're necessarily going to enjoy the process because a blend is a blend for a reason, and some very intelligent people with a lot of experience have spent a lot of time, for the most part, for most of these blends, figuring out which components should go in at which proportion, how you can marry it all together and make an amazing pipe blend. Just taking straight Perique and putting it in a pipe it's not going to be a recipe for a really good time, but it might be a very informative experience. And I think for me, this certainly was when I had the St. James Perique. I've done this before, but it's been quite a few years and I never did it on video. So I'm curious to know in the comments if any of you have tried this, maybe not just specifically Perique, but maybe Latakia or other varietals, components. Have you tried just taking it straight and seeing how it tasted? And if so, did that help you pick out these varietals or these condiment teas in other blends? And did it help you appreciate their flavor profiles in those blends more? I would love to know in the comments below. All right, gang, but this week we have lots of good questions, comments, and feedback in hashtag #AskStuffandThings. So I want to get into them now so I can get through them before the end of the show. Remember, if you have a question for me and you would like it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, you can tweet at SATBradley with the hashtag #AskStuffandThing. STUFFandTHINGS. You can also leave questions via Patreon if you're a Patreon supporter. That'll put you right at the top of the list. And then also on my YouTube videos, you can leave comments, ask your questions in those comments, leave your feedback. It's all good. It's all much appreciated. I love getting all those questions and comments from you so we can talk about them on the show. First, via Patreon, we have one from Corbin Bordner. Corbin says, "Do you have a good knife sharpener? I use the KME system and it gets a crazy edge every time. Get the honing films for a scary sharp and mirror edge." And this is interesting because we have another question via Twitter from Jason Hexeter Hunt at Hexeter, who says, "Hey Bradley, pursuant to your comments on your new knife, I was wondering where you got your sharpening stones and what procedure you use, as my Skeletool is in need of some sharpening love and I have not a clue what I might need." So, interesting. So Corbin asks, what kind of sharpening system do I use? And Jason asks about sharpening stones. So I do use sharpening stones. This is a fairly recent thing for me. I used to use on pocket knives that had a V edge. I don't know if we want to get all into like the geometry of different knife grinds, but typically most production knives will have a secondary V bevel on them. Let's see. So if you have the blade and you have a bevel, let's do this here, bevel, then you will have a secondary bevel at the end, typically. Does that show up? Does that make any sense? So you've got the main bevel and then a secondary V bevel. So if that's the kind of knife you have, I would use something like the Spyderco Sharp Maker, is that what it was called? Where it's basically one of those ceramic rod sharpeners where you have two ceramic rods and you're sharpening it. You can hold it at a specific angle for that secondary V edge. But typically, or not typically, recently I've been getting more into a convex edge, and that is where angle comes down and there's no secondary bevel. It just is convex. That just looks straight. Let me exaggerate it so it'll make it look more obvious. This is an exaggerated version of a convex edge. There. So you can see that there's no secondary bevel. It all just kind of rounds to a point. I like that edge better. And for that kind of edge, it's hard to use a guided sharpening system. So anyway, way too much information. I've been using sharpening stones. They are Japanese water stones. I have 3 grits at the moment. I have a 1000 grit. The stones are inside, like that. I have a 1000, I have a 1500, and I have a 5000. I use these, and maybe we'll do a video on sharpening at some point. And typically, if there's a knife that's not damaged or is already fairly sharp, it just needs a touch-up, or not just a touch-up, but there aren't any big chips or any problems with the edge, I'll use the 1500 and then the 5000, and then I use a leather strop like this with black and white Bark River stropping compound. So I have a black side, I have a white side, and that's how I finish it up. So maybe we will do a sharpening video at some point. I'm not an amazing expert or anything, but I do like using the Waterstones, and they get really good results. Oh, and then I usually spray all my knives with Ballistol once I'm done sharpening them. Just put a nice coating of Ballistol on it. It doesn't have to be super thick or anything, and that'll take care of preventing rust and stuff like that. So thanks for the questions, guys. Next, we have a question via YouTube. This is from Mark Vaynar, perhaps. How would you compare Escudo or Peterson Navy rolls to Elizabethan? Good question. A lot of people compare Escudo to Peterson Navy rolls, and you're kind of grouping them together. I don't think Escudo is as close as maybe some other people think. How am I right? Am I speaking a sentence here? I don't think that Escudo and Navy rolls are as close as some people think. There is some similarity there. They're both, they're coin cut, they're kind of sweet. But I don't think that either of them are very close to Elizabethan. Elizabethan's character is much different. It is a dark, mature Virginia. There is some brightness, there is some hay. I think it's a little more peppery, maybe even a little bolder than either Escudo or Navy rolls. And the fact that it's not a coin cut makes a big difference just in the character of it. All good blends, but I don't think they're super close. Next, from Andrew Barzal. So, Virginia's in the summer, heavy Latakia English in the winter. When should I have my Burleys? So we were talking about how seasonally it seems that some blends do better than others, or some blends hit the spot more than others in the summer or the winter. Obviously, this is not a rule. You can have whatever you want, whenever you want. But Burleys, I don't know, maybe Burleys would be good for the fall. They have kind of a nutty flavor to them. It reminds me of leaves turning, leaf litter on the ground, nuts maturing. Yeah, why not? Fall for Burleys. Next, we have some feedback. This is from last week's Sunday Stuff and Things. This is from Magnus Nielsen. Orlik Golden Sliced will always be the ultimate summer tea for me. That and McBaron's Scottish blend. Yeah, a lot of people were saying that Orlik Golden Slice is kind of plain to them and not super flavorful. And I think that is actually true, but to me that's almost, or it is a positive. It's not super strong, it's not super flavorful, but it's just good. It just tastes like a straight Virginia, and it's a nice, fruity, citrusy, grassy straight Virginia. It just works well, and it's great for a lighter kind of pipe during the summer, in my opinion. Next, from Blue Ridge, what is this? Oh, Blue Ridge Bank Angler. I'm in the same camp. I like Virginia blends in the hot summer, and I let my Latakia age for the fall and winter. My favorite is PS Luxury Navy Flake. Hard to beat the price. Elizabethan is a great blend, so 3 thumbs up for your number 1. While it was hard to find, I bought some Sutliff Match Victorian I need to pull out of my cellar and give a go. Thanks for the feedback, Blue Ridge Bank Angler. I did not love the Sutliff Match Victorian, but maybe you will. We shall see. Next, from Jens Anderson, H.H. MacBaron Pure Virginia Flake, Peterson Deluxe Navy Rolls, Samuel Gawith St. James Flake. Oh, yeah, that's a good one too. Samuel Gawith Full Virginia Flake, Gawith Hogarth Bob's Chocolate Flake. So I guess those are your favorite summer blends. Good choices there. Good choices indeed. This is from Glenn Dunnington. I enjoy all the blends you list, but Elizabethan is the best. Hear, hear. Next, from Josh Stivers. This gave me some ideas for summer blends. I only S English, but living in Texas when it's 95 degrees at 10 p.m. during our scorching summers, I tend not to S again until the fall. Definitely going to give a couple of these a try. Cheers. I hope you enjoy them, Josh. This is from Hallie's Ledger and Lace, one of our very few female viewers, at least one of the few who actually leave comments on videos. I'm sure you are well aware, haha, that next week begins Jane Austen July. I was not aware of that. It might be good to have you do a reaction video to Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 Keira Knightley version. Or just watch Rachel Maxey edit herself into a bunch of different scenes. It's funny even if you haven't seen the movie. That must be some sort of YouTube thing. I wouldn't ask you to sit through the BBC 95 series version, although that is the more accurate rendition. It's probably safe to say that here, but if you want to see Austenites divided and in an uproar, pit the 2005 version against the 95 version. Shade is thrown, Darcys are compared, and petticoats ruffled. So we're gonna get to this. She has another part of this. Speaking of composty, my brother has a very popular compost salad that is basically a giant bowl of cubed avocado, chopped hearts of palm, and a dressing he makes. Very popular in our fam. I don't know if I like the sound of that, but I'm glad you guys do. I'm one of these weird people. I don't really like avocados very much. I know that's crazy and heresy. Most people love them, but I'm not a huge fan. It wouldn't be that complicated to replace the elastic on the notebook when the time comes. You could even do that, do one in the center of the spine to go horizontally. Yeah, we're talking about in the first impressions video or the box opening video of the Roterfaden Taschenbegleiter. I was talking about, eventually this elastic band is going to lose its elasticity, and it's sewn in between the outer layer of this cover and then the inner suede. So it might be kind of a hassle to replace, but probably not a big deal. Next, she says, yes to the hiking vid. Tom Burley does some really great meanderings in Yorkshire with mudlarking, river walks, and Victorian bottled up. So I did do the hiking video. If you guys didn't watch that last week, I thought it was cool. There's a lot of snow still on Mount Baker, and that's where we went to hike. And for it being late June when that video was recorded, it's pretty cool to see, 10 feet of snow. It was fun. Okay, so first of all, the BBC version, the 95 version of Pride and Prejudice, I have seen, and I have seen multiple times, and I like it a lot. Maybe that surprises you, but I think Colin Firth, yes, as Mr. Darcy is great. I think he's hilarious. I think that's kind of the Mr. Darcy. I have not seen the 2005 Keira Knightley version, so I don't know who plays Mr. Darcy in that version, but I can't imagine that he's as good as Colin Firth. I always confuse Colin Farrell and Colin Firth. Farrell is the Irishman, and Colin Firth, I don't confuse them as far as I know who, I can see them both and I know what movies they've been in, but I can't remember which name goes to whom. I think Colin Firth is the one I'm thinking of. Okay, but thank you, Hallie's Ledger and Lace. Now we have a little bit of feedback from the Mount Baker hike. This is from Ashes of the Phoenix. Awesome! I don't remember if I've been to Mount Baker. I've been to Mount Rainier, of course, plenty of times. Mount St. Helens, the Olympic Mountains, which are my favorites, and some other mountains. Your next trip should be to the Olympic Mountains. You'd like that. How do you know? I've never been actually to Mount Rainier, which is kind of crazy. It looks really cool. I should head down there and climb it at some point. I mean, I'm not going to summit it, but maybe go to the park and hang around. Been to Mount St. Helens when I was a little kid. Haven't really done the Olympic Mountains either, so that would be really fun. Diamond and I, my fiance, want to go to the Olympic Peninsula this summer at some point, maybe visit a couple places, maybe the National Forest there. And then Scott Taylor, those big cedars, so I was showing some really big trees in that last video you should check out. There are some giant Douglas firs and Pacific red cedar there. He said, those big cedars remind me of the redwoods down in California. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that, I might be wrong here, but from what I can remember, the coast redwoods are the tallest trees in the world. I think the giant sequoia are the largest in terms of mass. And I think that Douglas fir, which we have here, are the second tallest in the world and one of the largest as far as mass. I mean, they're behind the redwoods. And then the Pacific red cedars we have here can get very, very large as well. There aren't a ton of those left because most of them got cut down, but when you do find an old one, like the one I found was at least 6 foot in diameter, maybe 7 foot. Or the two that I found. So it's really cool to be able to see some of those old growth trees. If you get into a stand of old growth forest and check them out, it's really cool. So check out that video if you haven't already. But now, gang, it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where we thank our Patreon supporters. If you would like to support the channels on Patreon, there is a link in the description box below, and it is much appreciated. It helps pay for the fancy camera that is filming this video right now, the lights shining upon me, pure Perique that I can review or do videos on the channel. It's super, super appreciated, and every week we like to shout out those who support the channels at $25 or more a month. People like Kirk Crompton, Private Eye, Glenn, Just Glenn, Jason Buckner, Gloria Phillips, MDoftheNorth, David Gaudreau, Mr. Luxurious, and Nick Papageorgio. And of course, we would like to thank the Maniacs, those who support the channels at $100 a month, people like our good friend and award-winning author Peter Straub, stolid, dependable Bob Magee, and rising from the ashes of the Phoenix. Again, there is a link in the description box below. If any of you would like to support, you could also hit that super thanks button below this video as well. But, you know, watching, subscribing, especially subscribing, liking those videos, that is all super helpful. Leaving comments and feedback, it's all good and it's all much appreciated. Please stay tuned for the Straight Perique video that will be this Wednesday. Some pretty interesting stuff. And as I've been talking about for weeks now, Bark River, Ultralite Bushcrafter. Look at how screwed up this sheath is getting. I've been taking it to work, so it's been getting kind of battered. And the Roterfaden Taschenbegleiter. These videos will be coming up as well, and Kevin the Kurt's adventures continuing in Elden Ring on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Stuff and Things Plays. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a very pleasant Sunday Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.